I was asked to tell you just a little bit about myself this evening, and also to introduce Sheikh Yusuf. And I want to give a special thanks to our non-Muslims who are visiting with us tonight. Contrary to what the media would have you think, Islam has a rich history of inviting, respecting, and protecting non-Muslims. And we continue that rich history today. The word community could not and would not exist without the suffix unity. Tonight we celebrate uniting with our Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, Native Americans, and all other religions I have not named, to increase a wholesome understanding of Islam and each other. From the age of 10, preaching in the Christian ministry, playing the piano and singing Southern gospel music. My late grandmother told me that I was praying before I started walking. My father had a heart attack when I was very, very young, and I do remember kneeling in my crib and praying for my grandfather. I, like Sheikh Yusuf, had an inquiring mind. I loved God with all my heart, my mind, my soul, and my strength. And nothing was more important to me than pleasing my Creator. And I knew innately that I had been born to serve Him. At the age of 12, I had read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, from cover to cover. And in that reading, I had not discovered a word called Trinity. I was a nightmare to my minister growing up. He sort of, when he saw me coming, he sort of wanted me going the other way. At the age of 12, I made an appointment with him, and I said, Reverend White, I've read this Bible now from Genesis to Revelation, and I can't find this word Trinity. He said, the reason you can't find it is because it's not there. He was very understanding. He tried to encourage me. He was very patient and very tolerant. He said, keep searching. So I did. I went to the library at school, took the Encyclopedia Britannica, and guess what I looked up? The word Trinity. And I found a phenomenal truth there. And of course, I went back to my minister and shared with him what I found. Believe it or not, he was still very happy and very patient with me. At the age of 15, I went to Lee College. I was beginning to study because I had every intention to be another Billy Graham, to be a great evangelist, because that's all I knew. Whilst I was at Bible college, I learned about the canonizing of the King James Bible. I was so distraught. It truly broke my spirit, and I almost had a nervous breakdown. I had to be put on medication because I had searched for the truth and I had not found it. At the age of 17, I was offered a full scholarship to Duke University, to divinity school. I had planned to complete my high school classes in 3 years so that I could go straight into seminary. After learning what I learned about the Trinity, I could no longer say the Apostles' Creed, and I had to refuse the scholarship. My integrity would not allow me to accept that scholarship. But I held on to one scripture in the Bible, 1 John 1:9. It says, if you continue in my word, then are you my disciples, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. But I was not free because I did not have the truth. All the pieces of the puzzle did not fit together. The longer I searched, the more in bondage I became. In 1980, I decided to run away from the church. And I didn't just run away from North Carolina to Florida. I went to South Africa. I said, I'm out of here. The last Sunday I was in America, I preached in a Baptist church. I went to South Africa leaving my Bible behind. I decided that in South Africa I would do human potential movement. I would try to see to it that apartheid was ended. And I would help people. But I couldn't teach because I didn't have all the answers. I arrived in South Africa very late. And my host said, I know you're hungry. Took me to one of those sort of 24-hour places to get something to eat. And on my way to where I was going to stay, I heard this man yelling from Table Mountain, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar! I said, what is that? He said, that's the adhan. He said, those crazy Muslims, they do that from morning to night, 5 times a day. I said, that is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my life. I could feel it in my heart. He said, well, you're going to get plenty of it. He said, you won't like it so much after a couple of days because they do it right up here and it's going to wake you up every morning. He also said, now let me warn you about those Muslims. He said, they all lie and they all steal. Well, I had to prove him wrong, and I did. But you know what's the sad part? I lived in that country for over 5 years, and nobody ever invited me into a masjid. I was searching. I was begging for people to teach me about Islam, and nobody ever invited me. So the reason I'm saying that to my fellow Muslim brothers and sisters, don't ever let it be said that you will have somebody hanging around your neck on the day of judgment because you didn't invite them and they were searching. This is an event of da'wah, which means to invite. If I hold a gun to my brother's head and say, come on, you go with me, that's not an invitation. But tonight we're about an invitation. We want to make sure that you know that the door is wide open for you to come to Islam. In 1985, my parents divorced and separated after 33 years of marriage, and my only brother died of an overdose of drugs. I was distraught, and I returned to America for a short time and back to South Africa. I decided, well, I can't get this thing right. God has not given me the truth. I'm not free. So I'm going to go and be a soul doctor. I'm going to go back to America, get my PhD in clinical social work or psychology, and I'm going to be a psychiatrist. And I came back to America with $1,200. I was earning in the top 5% of the country when I left. Started over with $1,200 in Los Angeles. And if anybody here knows anything about Los Angeles, $1,200 won't last you but about 3 weeks. And that's if you're real frugal. Allah blessed me with a wonderful wife. I was working in a store one day, and a man came to me and said, you lived in Africa, right? I said, South Africa, yes. He said, well, there's a man from Ghana that I want you to meet. I said, do you know how far Ghana is from South Africa? You know, it's not like we're going to be swinging in the same trees together or riding on the same elephant. You know, it's sad, but really, I'm in America, so I'm allowed to say this. Everybody, when I used to tell them that I lived in South Africa, they thought I lived in the jungle. They didn't understand that's where the first heart transplant took place, and that there were some actually bright people there, and computer technology, and telephones, and light switches. Alhamdulillah. Light switch. I met this man from Ghana. And when I met him, I had been meditating and praying and asking Allah, God at the time, to lead me to the truth. I had decided that I would work and make a living and go home and meditate until I found my truth, because I couldn't marry until I found my truth. I knew that God had shown me the woman that He wanted me to marry, and now I'm with her today 20 years. But I couldn't marry her until faith could be the cornerstone of that relationship. Anyway, when I went to see this man from Ghana, I said to him, God has led me to you. I don't know what your religion is, but I'm supposed to be it. He said, no. I'm not trying to get anybody in religion. I'm a psychologist. I said, you might not be trying to get me in your religion, but I'm trying to get there. I hounded that man for 3 months. And finally, after 3 months, he gave me a little book called Elementary Teachings to Islam. And I came back and I said, when can I do my Shahada? He said, there's no compulsion in our religion. I said, I'm not trying to be compelled. I've been asking you for 3 months. I want to be a Muslim. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He guided me to the truth. And He called me to Islam. I knew that in order for me to be the best da'i, the best servant to my ummah and for my Lord, I had to educate myself. I was working in California. By that time, I was earning about $70,000 a year. And I said to my wife one day, you know what, this is strange, but I feel so strongly that Allah wants me to go to North Carolina. And a prophet is not on earth in the same town, was what they said about Jesus, Isa alayhi salam. I said, I don't want to go back to my same town where I was a preacher and then, wear a jalabiyah and tell people I'm a Muslim, alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, all this stuff. And lo and behold, the business I was running got sold. And I said to my wife one time, I feel like Jonah. God told him to go to Nineveh. He said, I don't want to go to Nineveh. So he had him swallowed by a big fish and vomited up on the shore. Well, Allah was kind to me because I didn't get vomited up, but I did go back. When I got to North Carolina, I couldn't find a living that was comparable to the living that I've been making. And another thing happened. My mother said, if you're coming back here and you want my support, you have to change your name. You can't be Abdul Rahman anymore. I said, then I don't need your support. I love you, and because of my religion, I will always be good to you, because that's what my religion teaches. But I'm not going to be sold. I've been searching all my life for the truth, and now I have it, and I'm not for sale. I called my father, and I said, Dad, I need some help. We were going to stay with Mom for a while, and we're no longer invited. He said, call me back in 2 hours. I called him back. He had us an apartment. He found us an apartment. The lady that ran those apartments, I had played the piano for her when I was a pianist and southern musician. She said, we'd love to have him. My dad said, I can't pronounce his name. It's Abdul Rahman or something like that. But anyway, I call him Abdul. So we went to North Carolina. And they did a whole big page in the newspaper about me coming back to Wallace, North Carolina, a little town of 6,000. Had a picture of all my children and my my wife. And you can believe that stirred a lot of energy, a lot of opportunity to share Islam with people. I went to register for school. I was wearing this, not this kufi, but one like it. An inmate was standing at the Dupin County Correctional Facility. He told another inmate who was on work release, tell that man with the white hat to come and see us. I'm walking on campus minding my business, and this guy comes and hey dude, there's some Muslims over there that want you to come to see. I said, I don't know anybody in jail. He said, well, they want you to come. I started crying. I knew right then why Allah wanted me to go to North Carolina. I said to this young man, go bring me a list of those people and who I need to speak to. The very next day, I met with the warden of that prison. He said, I'd like you to be our imam tomorrow. I said, do what? Tomorrow? I said, I've agreed to this thing. I'm not qualified. He said, will you be our imam or not? 5 years, I was at the Dupin County Correctional Facility. I want to try to shorten this. Sheikh Yusuf doesn't know this, but he's very instrumental in my being where I am today. After I completed my education, the North Carolina Department of Correction said, we want you to be the first institution-based imam in the state of North Carolina. And guess what? I was. Sheikh Yusuf said, brother, if you can get here, I'll find you a place to stay. That was not a first for Sheikh Yusuf. Taking people in is the way he became a Muslim. Sheikh Yusuf was a Christian musician and minister. We had a lot in common, except he became a Muslim in 88, I became a Muslim in 87, and I think he's just a few years older than me. That's supposed to be funny. Monetarily, we had enjoyed the company of kings and paupers alike, but something was missing in our lives. Do you know how hard it is for a 50-year-old man to change? I'm 46 and I know how hard it is.
Wait till you get to 60.
You see, Sheikh Yusuf was working with his father, who was also an ordained minister, in a witnessing center that was disguised as a consignment shop. They called it a consignment shop.
What do you know about that?
I do my homework, brother. You told me to do that. So they had this consignment shop, and Sheikh Yusuf's father said, Jim, I want you to meet this Egyptian man. Sheikh Yusuf, I don't want to meet no Egyptian terrorist. His father said, I want you to meet him. He was studying to be a missionary at the time. And so he said, well, I'm going to meet him under my terms, Dad. He has to meet me at church on Sunday. So he invited him to church, and he was convinced that he was going to make a Christian out of it. You see, Sheikh Yusuf was a da'i before he became a Muslim. He was trying to get everybody to be a Christian before he ever came into Islam. Not only did he invite the Egyptian Muslim, he invited his Irish priest friend, Pete. Well, that was his name, right, brother?
Father Peter.
Father Peter. One day, when Sheikh Yusuf asked Muhammad, that was your Egyptian friend, right? What his religion taught about God, they were in the car, and Muhammad recited to him Surah Ikhlas. And Sheikh Yusuf had what we used to call in the Baptist days the Holy Ghost goose pimples. That means you feel something, you get goosebumps, you know. He was moved. He still wanted to see how he could bring this man to Islam, and he also wanted to find out how he could bring maybe Islam into Christianity. If he couldn't bring the man, at least he could bring his ideas. One morning, Father Pete went to the masjid with Muhammad. The next day he went to the masjid and he came back and he walked in with a jalabiyah on, saying, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I declare that there is no God but Allah and His messenger is Muhammad. Sheikh Yusuf became angry because he wanted to embrace Islam first. Here the Catholic priest had embraced Islam, he wanted to be first. He couldn't sleep that night. The next morning he went out behind the barn. I bet when he grew up he went behind the barn, it was for something else besides prayer. He didn't hear that. But he went behind the barn and he got on a piece of plywood and he put his head on the ground and he called on Allah. And he went inside the house and he did his shahada. Now, today, he's all over the country inviting people to Islam. When I went to Springfield, Virginia to visit Sheikh Yusuf,